Hey everybody, Josh here from my glorious cabin here on the Ruby Princess. It's my comfortable, roomy bunk up there, my trusty closet, and this is pretty much the entire room. Anyway, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my actual gig here, what it's like to be on the ship and what I actually do day to day. Partially just because, and also because it's kind of quirky what I'm doing right now. Technically, my job title is that I'm the orchestra bass player for the ship's orchestra slash show band. So under normal circumstances, what I would be doing is playing one of the production shows with singers and dancers in the main theater most nights of any given cruise. However, what I'm actually doing, I got on the ship at the beginning of March, and now it's mid-April when I'm posting this. And for the whole month of March, what I was doing was actually a jazz trio gig. And the reason for that, it's kind of a new thing. I'm under the impression that Princess is trying out because we are in the Caribbean and we're doing short 4 or 5 day cruises, whereas most cruises are between like a week and 2 weeks. And other more travel-y sort of itineraries. But basically these Caribbean cruises are short and people just come on and drink a lot and go do a beach thing, go woo, and then go back to their lives of quiet desperation or whatever. So there's not actually a full show band on. We don't have a guitar player, we don't have any horn players or anything. So all we had through March was piano, bass, and drums of the actual show band. There are other musicians on board, but for the actual show band, it was just the trio. So we were actually just doing a jazz trio thing up in the venues called the Adagio Lounge on these Princess ships. And it was pretty freaking cool because normally when you play jazz on a cruise ship, it's like T-4-2, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. I remember you. Hey, thanks for coming out, folks. But this was actually a pretty hip gig. The piano player was really great player, and he was also the music manager, so he's the guy who decides whether we're going to be lame and try to keep it in the little can so people's ears don't get flustered, or not, and he went with not. So we played some pretty hip stuff, and it was really fun. And if you are going to go out and work on a ship for the first time, you should not expect to get to play in a hip jazz trio, at least not at this moment in history. But I got to do that for a month, and it was pretty darn cool. What's changed now, our pianist had to leave for family emergency, so now it's just me and the drummer in the show band. So technically, I could just be living on this ship and not contributing anything to society while we wait for the full band to join at the end of the month. But what I'm doing instead is I'm playing some solo bass shows now. So I'm going from a jazz trio thing that nobody's ever seen on a cruise ship to a solo bass thing that almost nobody's ever seen on a cruise ship. Except for when I did it back in 2010, bitches. Represent. That's all fake, egoic blustering. But anyway, I've been doing some solo bass sets just to kind of help out, putting some music in the venues and have some fun. So I've been working on some new arrangements. I did Time After Time. I did Pinch Me, Bare Naked Ladies. I did Bye Bye Bye. I did I Want It That Way. Some jazz tunes, some box stuff, and some originals. So that's really cool. And again, if you're a bass player, you're not going to get hired as a solo bassist. But if you feel like it when you're on a ship, you know, and your chops are good enough, you might ask your band leader if you can fill in on one of the solo entertainer sets throughout the day that normally a guitarist or pianist might do. And you can just take it as an opportunity to practice a more technical and layered way of playing in addition to your normal show band stuff that you're doing. So that's what I'm doing right now, is the solo stuff, and also just practicing a lot and learning tunes and watching Harry Potter movies. So that's pretty cool. But starting at the end of the month, I'm actually going to be playing show band stuff, which will be a big change of pace. So we'll be doing 2 different shows as far as I know, and every night on these big ships, unlike the small ship I did back in 2010, You play each show twice a night. So you go in, you do a show. The shows are like 35 or 40 minutes. You go back to your cabin and lie in your bunk and think about what you're doing with your life for an hour, and then you go do the exact same thing again for a slightly different selection of people in the seats, and that's that. Which I thought would be really weird, but now that I've done it a few times, it's not that weird. And the shows here seem really short to me. They're like 35 minutes, and that's great because I think that in general the production shows and stuff on cruise ships are pretty lame. It's just my personal opinion. I can certainly make arguments as to the objectivity of the statement, but for now I'll just say it's my opinion. So anyway, that's what I'll be doing from the end of April to the end of my contract, which will be a couple months. And that'll be different. It'll be more work, but probably still within 2 or 3 hours at the most of work per day. And I've actually had a few days off on this contract here and there, besides this weird solo bass missing a piano player thing that's happening right now. Because there's a lot of musicians on these big ships. There's 2 different bands, there's a duo, there's like 3 solo entertainers, there's 2 DJs, and there's a show band. So there's a lot of stuff happening, you know, even if one of the different performing groups has the night off. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's what's happening. I've done some jazz trio stuff, some solo bass stuff, and we'll do show band stuff. So it's quite a quirky contract, but I like it because it's tough doing the same gig for a 4 or 5 month contract. So I'm glad I'm not doing that. Anyways, that's what's happening. Stuff's good. Talk to you guys soon.